1,000 things can happen when you light a rocket engine. Only one of them is good. Marshall Hunter had heard that refrain from his old man and his extended family of spaceplane pilots so often that it had threatened to lose all meaning. As he learned to fly these powerful machines, it had become a mantra he repeated to himself before every flight. As he approached his assigned plane, a westerly wind with a hint of vanilla from the nearby ponderosa forests mixed with the odor of kerosene fuel into an aroma disturbingly similar to the floor cleaner from the junior officers' quarters. With an annoyed wrinkle of his nose, Marshall shook off the unwelcome reminder of barracks life and began his pre-flight inspection. The Puma suborbital trainer was a squat, flat-nosed craft sporting twin vertical stabilizers at the tips of its clipped delta wing. The little spaceplane's cockpit had just enough room to seat 2 pilots in front of a pressure bulkhead that separated them from tanks of liquid oxygen and RP-1 rocket fuel. Marshall moved methodically from nose to tail and wingtip to wingtip, measuring his progress against a checklist on the tablet he carried. He'd flown this little craft enough that the pre-flight routine was burned into his brain. Opening the checklist itself had become a rote formality. By now, he could recite it from memory, but he didn't trust the training squadron to not slip in some minor change just to trip up an overconfident student. Finally arriving at the tail, the rocket plane's business end, he opened an engine access panel to make sure all the plumbing was still in the right place and not leaking. The engine itself was sparkling clean, but for the usual discoloration around the nozzle, the glazing of high-temperature alloys after repeated ignition cycles. If there were a fault hidden in there somewhere, there'd be precious little he could do here to detect it. If there were some dormant failure lurking in there with his name on it, then the gremlin would find him soon enough. That's what the -1 emergency memory items were for. And if those failed, there was always the ejection seat. He tried not to think about that. Moving on, he went back to the wing and worked his way out to the oversized winglets at either end. He paid particular attention to the reinforced carbon heat shielding around its leading edge. Of all the potential catastrophic failures, this was one of the few he could evaluate with his own eyes ahead of time. Satisfied with their integrity, he tapped an icon on the tablet marking his pre-flight checklist complete. It would show up immediately in the training squadron's records and let his instructor pilot know that Ensign M.T. Hunter was ready to blast.